Snowy 2.0 project.
Snowy 2.0.
Snowy Hydro 2.0.
A mountain is about to perform surgery on itself. Deep beneath the frozen peaks of the Australian Alps, engineers are preparing for the most complex operation in the nation's history. This is Snowy 2.0, the biggest, most expensive and most controversial engineering gamble in the history of the continent. The goal is to carve out a massive underground network, essentially hiding a 2,200 megawatt power station 800 meters beneath the Earth's surface. It is a story of incredible ambition and terrifying risk. But as the budget explodes and giant machines get swallowed by the Earth, we have to ask, are we building the savior of the energy grid or a multi-billion-dollar monument to a mistake? To truly understand Snowy 2.0, you have to look back to 1949. For the generation that grew up in post-war Australia, the original Snowy Mountain scheme wasn't just a construction project. It was the birth of modern Australia. It brought together 100,000 workers from over 30 countries, many of whom had been on opposite sides of a world war just years earlier. They built 7 power stations and 16 major dams, creating a miracle of irrigation and energy that defined a century. That project was completed in 1974, mostly on time and close to its £422 million budget. Today's project, Snowy 2.0, is being sold as the completion of the vision. But the world has changed. Where the original project relied on grit, dynamite, and new Australians with shovels, Snowy 2.0 relies on multi-billion-dollar machines and a grid that is desperately trying to survive without coal. The desperation is real. For decades, the backbone of Australia's power has been a fleet of aging coal-fired plants like Liddell and Eraring. But as these plants reach their end of life and shutter, they leave a terrifying gap. Wind and solar are rushing in to fill the void, but they are notoriously intermittent. When the sun sets and the wind stops, the grid faces what engineers call a dark doldrum. Snowy 2.0 is the proposed solution, a giant battery made of water and rock. It uses pumped hydro technology, which is elegantly simple in theory, yet brutally difficult to execute. When energy is cheap and abundant, water is pumped from the lower Talbingo Reservoir to the upper Tantangara Reservoir. When the grid screams for power, that water is released, screaming back down through 27 kilometers of tunnels to spin massive turbines and generate electricity instantly. But calling this a simple project is a massive understatement. The scale of the Snowy reset is eye-watering. Originally pitched in 2017 with a modest price tag of $2 billion and a 4-year timeline, the project has officially ballooned to $12 billion for the main works alone. This 600% cost increase has sent shockwaves through the industry. When you factor in the massive transmission upgrades like HumeLink, which are required to move that power from the remote mountains to the hungry cities of Sydney and Melbourne, some analysts estimate the total economic footprint is approaching a staggering $25 to $30 billion. Despite this, the project is now a sunk cost necessity. As of early 2026, the construction is roughly 67% complete. The government is effectively doubling down, arguing that the 350,000 megawatt-hours of storage, enough to power 3 million homes for an entire week, is the only thing standing between Australia and total energy instability. To carve out these enormous caverns and the 27 kilometers of tunnels, engineers brought in the titans of the construction world. Tunnel boring machines, or TBMs. Each of these colossal machines is a staggering 100 meters long, the length of a professional soccer pitch, and weighs thousands of tons. At the very front is a cutter head, wide enough to dwarf a 4-story building. But these machines have found the mountain a difficult beast to tame. The most infamous of these, a machine named Florence, became a symbol of the project's geological nightmare. In 2022, Florence hit a patch of soft, wet ground that was never supposed to be there. She ground to a halt as the earth turned to soup around her, and a 9-meter-deep sinkhole appeared on the surface of the national park above. For over a year, this multi-million-dollar titan sat paralyzed, while engineers fought to stabilize the Earth. It was a stark reminder that even with the best modern technology, the ground under the Alps is a labyrinth of unpredictable fault lines, hard blue stone, and shifting clays. Digging, however, is only half the job. The back half of a TBM is a sophisticated construction factory that leaves behind a perfectly formed concrete-lined tunnel. But even this process has been plagued by delays. The logistics of Snowy 2.0 are staggering. The project is located in the heart of Kosciuszko National Park, one of the most protected and pristine alpine environments in the world. This has created a massive environmental headache. What do you do with 14 million cubic meters of excavated rock and soil? That is enough spoil to fill the Melbourne cricket ground more than 7 times over. To handle this mountain of material, a highly organized system of enclosed sheds and conveyor belts was designed to contain dust and noise, but it hasn't stopped the criticism. Environmentalists warn of the risk of spreading invasive redfin perch between the reservoirs, potentially devastating local ecosystems and wiping out native species. This creates a painful irony. A project designed to save the planet's climate is physically scarring one of the country's most sensitive wilderness areas. Then there is the efficiency tax that rarely gets discussed in the brochures. Snowy 2.0 is a net consumer of energy. Because of the laws of physics and the friction of moving water through kilometers of pipe, it takes more energy to pump the water up than you get when it flows back down. The system loses roughly 30% of its electricity during the round-trip pumping process, plus another 10% in transmission losses across the high-voltage lines. Critics argue that for a $12 billion investment, a 40% total energy loss is a hard pill for taxpayers to swallow. Yet supporters and grid operators argue that this is the necessary price of firming. You aren't paying for the energy itself. You are paying for the insurance policy. You are paying for the guarantee that the lights stay on at 6 p.m. on a windless winter night when every other renewable source has gone quiet. The path to completion remains a long and winding journey through the dark. A central control room will eventually serve as the brain of this operation, monitoring hundreds of sensors and using artificial intelligence to automatically detect grid fluctuations. But before that can happen, engineers must finish the power station cavern, a space so vast it could comfortably house a cathedral. As of late 2025, the project has undergone another line-by-line cost reassessment as productivity struggled to meet the aggressive new targets. While the current target for first power generation is set for December 2028, many independent analysts believe the gamble won't truly pay out until the 2030s. For the generation that saw the first Snowy scheme transform Australia from a pastoral backwater into an industrial power, Snowy 2.0 feels both familiar and alien. It has the same nation-building rhetoric, but it lacks the clear-cut economic simplicity of the original. We are no longer just building for irrigation and cheap power. We are building for survival in a world where the old rules of energy no longer apply. Ultimately, the true cost of Snowy 2.0 can't just be measured in dollars, tons of steel, or cubic meters of earth. It is a test of national will and a massive social experiment in climate adaptation. It has moved beyond a simple infrastructure project and into the realm of a 150-year legacy. If it works, it becomes the anchor for a green continent and a blueprint for how the world can store renewable energy at scale. If it fails, it remains a $12 billion cautionary tale of engineering hubris. What do you think? Is this massive investment in the future a visionary move for our grandkids, or is it a multi-billion-dollar gamble that has simply gone too deep to stop? We want to hear from you. Have you visited the Snowy region recently, or do you remember the construction of the original scheme? Let us know your thoughts and memories down in the comments. If you found this journey into the heart of the mountain fascinating, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. If you want to see more deep dives into the world's most incredible and expensive engineering projects, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.